Event 12 of Season 4 in SailGP has come to a conclusion. It's the Mubadala New York Sail Grand Prix. Stevie Morrison, Emily Nagel, I'm Todd Harris. Wow, what an event. Mother Nature didn't cooperate on day number 1, but she came back with a vengeance on day 2.
Exactly, and you know what? We did have some great racing here. Day 2, we got all 3 races in, and it was competitive.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't perfect conditions in terms of, you know, it was tricky for the maneuvers. Teams were dropping off the foils, but that does make it that little bit exciting and really tests all the teams to not make a mistake.
What's your biggest takeaway from New York City?
Oh, it's just spectacular. I mean, my biggest takeaway is just how cool is it to have sailboat racing in the middle of a big city like that looks cool. You know, the first shot, we came off the start line, the helicopter's coming in behind Lady Liberty, it pans around to the fleet with Lady Liberty, and then it goes to another shot looking at Manhattan, and you're just like, what is going on here? We used to sailboat racing happening miles out to sea, and it's happening in the middle of a city. That and New Zealand are pretty hard to beat.
No question about it. That's 5 wins out of 12 events. So how do you stop Pete and the Black Foils?
Start ahead of them. It's all going to come down to how accurate can the other teams be. You know, after the final here, Phil Robertson said I wasn't quite as aggressive as I would perhaps normally be. And I think, to be honest, a minute out from the start of the final, the Kiwis were in the best position. I think it would have been hard for Phil to be aggressive from there. I thought he was out of position quite early on. Giles Scott clearly was kind of looking for a different approach, and Burling was on it. And you know, the advantage perhaps the Kiwis have had for the back end of the season is they can be focused on that 3-boat final setup, and they executed it perfectly, and it was ominous. However, a lot less wind here this weekend than we're going to expect when we get to San Fran.
I was going to say, is New York City a good litmus test, Emily, for what we'll see in San Francisco, or is it going to be a whole different ball of wax?
Let's just say San Fran is New York on steroids. There's more wind, there's more tide. Like, it was great here seeing the tide plane.
Right.
Smaller buildings.
Yeah, that's one big prison. One big prison.
But we just end up with kind of all of these factors that the teams have practiced today. You know, they had to take the tide into consideration into their tactics, but there's more.
Yeah.
There is so much more in San Fran, which makes it so much more important to have that strategy worked out before the race starts.
I think what's interesting with San Fran when I think back to it is it tends to be one of our bigger race courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it's kind of up to, you know, Ian Murray to Mel what they decide to do there. But if they go with what we normally see, it's one of the races. I mean, I really enjoy it as a sailor because it's like they get to stretch their leg. There is chance for wind shifts to play out. They're not just bouncing off the boundaries. There is that strategic side to it. And then that plays into the boat speed side, which I think favours New Zealand. I think they are the fastest boat, especially upwind. Emily will no doubt have some actual numbers to put to that. Tom Slingsby on board Australia. I think, you know, he looks so depressed after that final. But I think when he goes to bed tonight, he'll look at the overalls and he'll say, all right, that wasn't what we wanted. But actually, you know, we've not had the roll of the dice right now. We don't know when that's going to come. He'll obviously be hoping it comes when we get to San Francisco. But he's pretty much now punched his ticket into that final, I'd say, barring absolute disasters, which they have shown us are possible, of course. But, you know, for Tom, he's got to go away and think, right, how do I hit that start line ahead of Pete? But even then, the New Zealand boat just looks really slippery, looks really fast, especially upwind.
I'm going to give you the tough question. If Australia's in and New Zealand's in, who's going to join them?
Well, as I was saying before this, there's still 6 teams that could all make this final. Technically speaking, the Danish and the Canadians, they're on 67 points. If they went out there and they won the San Fran event,
Would give them 10 more.
10 more points, and Spain had a shocker, got first, which is possible in San Fran. You know, we've seen boats capsize and crash there. Anything can still happen. So they do still have that potential. But if I was going to place a bet, I would say Spain would make it through, like, just from the points.
But don't forget about France. I mean, they're even better positioned than Canada and Rockwell, Denmark.
Well, they are, yeah. I mean, you know, they are. You know, they're good in a bit of breeze. I just think the Spanish are sailing well enough. You know, they're there out on merit. They're not there on chance. I mean, as Emily said, anything happened. There's penalty points. We saw the Germans here. They had a crash in practice. They start the event 4 points behind. You know, could have been a worse crash. It could have been season points. All of that is, of course, possible. But for Botin, he's got to be feeling pretty confident of making that final and going head to head with the 2 boats. Of course, he beat in Bermuda.
Yeah, I think the one advantage that the French will have a little bit of confidence from is the fact that they typically do well in big breeze, and that is what San Fran is known for. The Spanish a little less so, but we have seen them improving event
How many
to event.
nightmares will Quentin have from his experience there with Ben Ainsley last year?
Ben just locked him out. Yeah, no question about it. Let's talk about the United States. They're currently in 8th place. They had a really bad run of performances, Stevie, just 10th, 10th, 10th. They finally got a 9th. But what is it going to take for this team to turn it around?
Well, a lot, I would say. I mean, it's tough, isn't it? As Taylor's alluded to in interviews, there's a lot to learn. I still can't get away from the fact that you come in as a new team, and I think in those 3 positions, driver, wing trimmer, flight controller, one of those needs to have experience. You know, they had CJ, they got rid of CJ, they chose to go with a completely fresh team, and I would, I'm sure they'll back that decision, and it'll all go. I would guess, but I feel like if all 3 of you are trying to learn at the same time, that's really, really hard. So I think I would be trying to buy in some experience if possible. I mean, if I was Chris Draper, who's, sat there as an ex-wing trimmer, one of the leading guys, I'd be, writing a number on a bit of paper and sliding it under the door, if you see what I mean. But I just think they've got to get that little bit of experience in to help them with the learning, because I think now that we're a few events in, they're seeing, actually, this is quite hard. They were brilliant early on in that light wind event, but now that it's proving hard.
I think that could be a turning point for them, though. So from the data, we've obviously seen how much they're adjusting everything. I mentioned it in racing. We're seeing they're the most active on the wind trim, they're the most active on the foils, which obviously isn't always a good thing, because, it's just a lot of changing. It makes it really hard for Taylor to get locked in. Like you said, if you've got some experience there, someone can kind of lock it in a little bit and get going. But they have finally admitted in the press conference that they have a lot of learning to do. That is, I'm pretty sure, the first time we've heard that from them. Like, since this new team came on board, they're like, yeah, we're going to win. We're here to smash it, which is great to, have that attitude of we're
confidence.
Here to compete.
But as Phil Robertson likes to say, eventually you got to walk the walk.
Yeah, and you've got to realize that you have gaps in your knowledge, be open to learning, be open to improving, and once you've done that, then you will actually improve.
We're talking about young teams. How about this big news? The league announced an 11th team is locked in. It's going to be Brazil.
Yeah, well, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, firstly, to get into South America, Emily will light the room up in a minute with all the amazing sailors that are from there. But, I was, I got to coach the British 49er girls in the Japan Olympics and witness some Brazilians in the 49er FX win the gold. So, there's a lot of talent out of Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, I am a little bit biased. Martina and Kayana are good friends, but their talent speaks for itself. They've got gold medals. There are other Brazilians as well that are amazing sailors. You've got the likes of Robert Scheidt, Marco Grael, Martin's brother.
Martin's dad.
Not sure if he'd be on the boat.
No.
But, there's heaps of talent out there. And they've also got a lot of young talent coming through. You look at the IQ foil class, okay? It's not a sailing boat, but we've seen across the sport, like Anna Weiss, she's an IQ foiler. So foiling windsurfing, for those that don't know. And that sport's growing. That's bringing heaps more skills. And Brazil are doing quite well in that as well. So there's plenty of talent out there.
But there are no official people just yet. Just to
no
clarify, that's just Emily picking the team for the Brazilians.
And not to end on a negative note, but there are still several teams out there that are fighting for their financial solvency. I mean, who's going to stick around next year and who's going to possibly lose their boat?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know on that. I mean, I saw on Racing on the Edge, I saw the Spanish guy offer up a name of someone that, Andy Thompson had said.
Thompson got his eyebrows up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who was that? I mean, we're hearing some pretty exciting things about other teams. And yeah, I mean, let's not forget, this is a professional league. We've just been racing in New York, man. Yeah. This is real. This is awesome. And yeah, you've got to pay to play. And I think the teams need to make things happen. And hopefully it would be, that'd be a great shame to lose any of those teams. But
and it's really tough because 3 of those 4 teams are neck and neck on the season leaderboard. Yeah. There's barely anything in it. But, I mean, New Zealand also not safe. We saw what happened with Japan after a brilliant season.
They're winning so much prize money, they're just going to pay for their own team, I think.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. Once again, congratulations to New Zealand. They get 10 more points. They now lead 93 points. Australia sits in second, and Spain sits in third with 1 event to go. That, of course, being the grand final in San Francisco coming up July 13th and 14th. In a little matter of $2 million of prize money up for grabs. So we will certainly be there. We'll bring it to you. We hope you enjoy it. Once again, for Stevie Morrison, Emily Nagel, Lisa Darman, and Down in the Water, I'm Todd Harris. We will see you in San Francisco in just a few weeks' time.